Direct Connection is made by MPT to serve all of our diverse communities and is made possible by the generous support of our members. Thank you. Live from Maryland Public Television, this is Direct Connection with Jeff Salkin.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in for Direct Connection. Tonight, we connect you with one of the nation's foremost activists, certainly one of the most influential and maybe most recognizable. DeRay McKesson was part of the creation of Black Lives Matter, now is the author of On the Other Side of Freedom, The Case for Hope. He is our guest for the full program tonight. DeRay, it's great to meet you.
It's an honor to be here.
You have 1 million Twitter followers, but among our public TV viewers, probably a few people who don't follow you on Twitter. For them, who is DeRay McKesson?
I'm an activist and organizer. I spend most of my time working on issues of police violence and mass incarceration. From Baltimore, live in Baltimore. But before this work around policing and mass incarceration, I was a teacher. I taught 6th grade math in East New York, Brooklyn, worked in the public school system here in Baltimore as a chief of human capital. Most recently, worked in Minneapolis public schools as well. I opened up an after-school center in Baltimore. I believe in kids, and one day I think I might go back to the classroom. I love 6th grade math.
What's most important to you in the world right now?
From a work perspective, I'm fascinated with the issues around mass incarceration and police. You know, like 1/3 of all the people killed by a stranger in this country is actually killed by a police officer. People don't understand the magnitude of these things.
1/3 of the people
killed by a stranger.
Okay.
Is killed by a police officer. It's fascinating from a scale perspective.
Well, I'm thinking about the numbers. I mean, just locally, we have 300 homicides a year in Baltimore City. Can't be more than a handful of police-involved shootings. But you're saying that most of the other people were not random. It was
so at the national level, when we look at data, when we look at who is killed by police, it's the majority of people. 1/3 of all the people killed by strangers actually killed by a police officer, which is a frame that we help people to understand that the scale is actually much bigger than you think. And what's been interesting about the last 4 years is that the number of people killed by police has actually been pretty constant. In 2018, more people were killed than in 2017. There's actually not been a dip. So I spend most of my time around that. And there are these structural issues, even in Maryland. The law says in Maryland that you can file an anonymous complaint against a police officer for everything except brutality. So we spend a lot of time trying to figure out what are the laws and policies and practices that allow these behaviors to continue, and why in Baltimore can you file a complaint against an officer for everything except brutality? That makes no sense. Why is that protected?
So a lot hasn't changed since Ferguson. What has? What are you proud of?
Yeah, so I think that the conversation has certainly changed, and more people are working on issues of mass incarceration than they have ever in public in this way. I think that's really powerful. And some things have changed at the local level. Baltimore is actually a city where police violence has gone, police killings have gone down since the protests began. Oakland is a city too where the data has gone down. Nationally, the data has stayed the same. I think that people are organizing around a set of issues like civil asset forfeiture in ways that they weren't before. You think about in Louisiana, they got rid of non-unanimous juries, huge, right? So I think that there's some things that are moving that are pretty powerful, but there's a lot of work to do. And there are 18,000 police departments, right? So most of the changes that'll happen for policing is actually local or at the state level. It's not really the federal government.
Why'd you write the book? I mentioned you have 1 million people on Twitter who see every thought you want to put out there. A book is kind of old school.
Yeah.
Why'd you do it?
I love Twitter. I got a lot of followers really quickly. That wasn't the goal, but it happened. The thing about Twitter, though, is that it is perfect for tight messages and quick thoughts. It's not actually built for longer form. And I wanted to write longer form. I wanted to write about our research on the police. I wanted to write about what it meant that my mother left. I wanted to write about what it means to be a gay Black man who's an activist. I wanted to write about all these things that Twitter just wasn't the best space for them. An essay was, and I wanted to put all the essays that meant something to me in one place, which was a book.
Do you think everybody's? How many tweets do you send a day? Would you say?
Less now than I used to. So,
all right, at your peak?
A lot. I don't know, 50, 70. I do a lot more retweeting now than actually tweeting original things.
Has it made us all, shorter attention span kind of readers?
I think it has done that. I also think that we don't live in a 24-hour news cycle. We live in an hour news cycle. And I think that platforms like Twitter have like helped that happen. And sometimes I just like can't exist in that space. And one of the things that allowed it to be so organic when we were in the street in St. Louis is that we didn't really know that the world was watching in the way that we now know they were. That like, you know, I had the same impact in the middle of the street as I did from 800 followers or 2,000 followers to 500,000 when we were actually in the middle of the protest. People forget that we were in the street for 400 days. People forget that it was illegal to stand still in August, September, and October of 2014. That if we stood still for more than 5 seconds, we were arrested. People forget those things, but I remember them and wanted to put them and a lot of other stories in one place.
All right, title of the book, On the Other Side of Freedom. Let's start there. What does that mean?
Yeah, so I think that we spend so much time, I spend a lot of time, activists, advocates, focused on this side of freedom. Like, what does it mean that we live in a country that arrests more people for weed than all violent crimes combined, right? That is about this side of freedom. The question is, like, how do we get to the other side? So I wanted to write a book that reflects some of, like, where we are, but talks, too, about, like, how do we get to how do we start to think about imagination, and how do we start to think about using data in innovative ways, and how do we start to think about the police differently? And that's what I wanted the book to be, this question of, like, how do we get to the other side?
You're living in Baltimore. You're from Baltimore. Mm-hmm. What do you think of the situation in Baltimore right now in terms of policing?
You know, Baltimore is, the last time there was a ranking of police departments, it was the 8th largest police department in the country, which is pretty wild because we are not the 8th largest city in the country, as you know. You think about the hundreds of millions that is spent on policing, and the clearance rate is pretty low. It's in the 20s. You think about what does it mean that now the mayor is actually calling for state troopers to patrol the city of Baltimore. The governor has a set of state police patrolling, and the outcomes are largely the same. What we know to be true about Baltimore and a whole set of cities is that most of the crime is crimes of poverty and crimes of addiction. And until we actually do something about poverty and addiction, we won't meaningfully impact the crime stats in the city. I also am, you know, still shocked about the officer that got killed in the alley and how people, like, there's no resolution in that. Like, that case to me is really a reminder that
the Souter case.
The Souter case is like that to me is like fascinating. And you saw, like I saw, that like even with the federal government intervening, they still, like, the federal government saw them do things that were wrong. So I haven't seen any wholesale plan for change in the police department. So I'm waiting like everyone else is.
Let me remind our viewers, if you have a question for DeRay McKesson, you can give us a call. We'll have the number up on the screen. You can also email your questions. The email address is livequestions@mpt.org. Send us an email. And back to Baltimore Police, new police commissioner, which is not a new thing, but we have another new police commissioner. If you were the new police commissioner, what would you do?
Fight the union to change the discipline policies in the police department. So right now, when an officer is disciplined in Baltimore City, they go before a 3-person panel that can only be sworn officers. And then the officer who is being accused actually has the power to strike all 3 of those members and appoint new people or like get new people put in. And that like from an accountability standpoint makes no sense. So we have not seen police chiefs publicly press to change the discipline policies internally. We've seen them quietly behind the scenes sort of say some things. I think that would be a big deal. And then I think that, again, most of the money that goes to policing should go to some of the prevention work around poverty and addiction.
So are you saying we'd be better off with a smaller police department?
Oh, certainly.
Because one of the issues they bring up is that there are hundreds of positions, 500 positions below their authorized force strength.
Yeah, but the reason, so what's interesting about that, so that is exactly what they say. The reason why they are not fully staffed is because people don't want to work for the police department, not because they're not funded for it. So they have the positions, they have the money for the positions, they are vacant because they can't hire for the positions, not because they can't afford them, which is different. If there was any other industry that people refuse to work in, we would say something's wrong with the industry. With the police, there's like this weird thing that like blames the public for the fact that people don't want to work there. And that's not the case. If there was a teacher shortage and we're like, nobody wants to be a teacher, we would be like, wow, this is like, we need to rethink public education in that way. But the police is different.
It's a tough gig. I mean, you have the potential of getting shot.
Do you know what percentage of arrests in the country do you think happen for violent crimes?
I have no idea.
Guess.
Small.
Guess.
I don't know. I asked the questions here.
It's 5%. So this idea that like everything is a recipe for a police officer to get killed is actually not true. It's a myth. It's a beautiful myth that the police perpetuate. But the majority of arrests are actually for nonviolent crimes, for quality of life crimes. And if you think about 5% are for arrests for violent crimes, even less than that is for convictions.
Are you saying that the police don't have a dangerous job? I mean,
saying
I know cops have been shot. It happens, at least once a year.
Yeah, I'm saying that garbage workers, truck drivers have statistically more dangerous jobs than police officers. So if the question is like, who has a dangerous job? There's a lot of people that have dangerous jobs. And if you believe that people with dangerous jobs should just operate outside the law, that is certainly sort of a perspective to have. But this idea that the police have such dangerous jobs in a way that is unique to them and unlike anybody else would potentially be true if violent crime was like the thing that we were arresting a ton of people for, but it actually isn't.
So what, in your view, needs to change? You want to be able to more easily discipline police officers. And to be clear, I mean, the Baltimore Police Department has an obvious record of brutality, has an incredible recent record of corruption cases, and is deeply troubled. Not saying it's not.
Yeah.
I'm just saying being a cop is tough.
Yeah, being a teacher is hard in our city too. Being, again, like you look at the data around who has hard jobs, like garbage workers, dangerous, truck drivers, dangerous. So that this idea that they're the only people who have dangerous jobs is actually, the data doesn't support that. I do think that like accountability has to be a part of it. The second part of it is that we have to look really intensely on the rules by which officers can use force in communities. So we did this big project around use of force policies in the country, and we find that when there are more restrictive use of force policies, it actually means that there's less violence in communities. So Baltimore actually now has a set of good policies, still has some work to do. So you saw that last viral video where the officer like slapped somebody and his partner didn't intervene. That actually in Baltimore City is a violation of policy. The other officer is required to intervene when they see force being used incorrectly. So those sort of policy things actually do have a statistical impact on violence in communities.
Let's take a phone call. Loudoun County, this is Julie. Julie, thanks for the call. Go ahead.
Yes. Hello, Valerie. It's nice to finally speak with you. My question is really two. The first part is Kamala Harris is running for president. What's your opinion about that? And my second comment is, if police are really that afraid and the type of work that they're doing, perhaps maybe they should consider another line of work. You signed up to, pretty much it is a dangerous job, but you knew that going in. So that's just my take.
Julie,
and
thanks.
I'll take your answer on the other side. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the phone call. National politics first. Kamala Harris, thoughts?
So I like Kamala a lot. I think that she will need, I think that people are hungry for an explanation of her role as a prosecutor and how her views have changed or not changed. I think that she's not offered that yet for people, and people want that. I think that the longer that she delays, not only is the public going to get frustrated, but her surrogates, people who want to advocate for her and want to spread her message, are actually also going to feel a little shaky about walking into a room, because they don't want to be pressed with like, you said that you smoked weed when you were younger, but you seemingly prosecuted people for smoking weed. How does that work? And I think people want those answers. But I like Kamala. I think she clearly is a front runner. I think that the field is actually shaping around her right now. It'll be interesting to see what happens if Beto, Bernie, or Biden actually step in the race.
You have a favorite?
No, it's too early. We don't really know anybody's policy platforms yet. It's like we're in the personality phase of the presidential campaign. I'm interested to see when the personality phase transitions to the policy.
Pete calling from Washington County. Pete, thanks for the call. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Sure.
Very interesting program. Find your guest very interesting in the sense that he's wanting to find multiple ways to deal with correcting and disciplining police officers while avoiding the question of dealing with discipline and correction of the lawbreakers. I'm a 37-year retired cop and worked in 3 different states, 3 different jurisdictions. And I find most of what he says not just offensive, but beyond challenging.
Well, give me a point that you want to challenge.
Number one, that he's talking about law enforcement not being one of the most dangerous jobs in the country. It is now one of the highest suicide rate workplaces due to the type of work we have to put up with, the type of public we have to put up with.
All right, Pete, thank you for the phone call.
So I don't think that suicide data is the same thing as dangerous data. I think that there might be a mental health component that we should explore with policing, not the same thing as a dangerous job. Doctors also have high suicide rates, and young black teens actually have high suicide rates. So like when we look at suicide data, it is interesting. You know, if we talk about police and suicide, we should also talk about what does it mean to be policed in communities where people also have mental health issues. But again, back to this idea of sort of what policing looks like is if the notion is that I am over-indexing on holding police officers accountable and not holding community members accountable, it's like we have a lot of structures that already hold. There's no shortage of accountability for people in neighborhoods. There's no shortage of arrests happening, certainly no shortage of convictions, and there's no shortage of prison and jail sentences. So that side is already pretty solid. It's like what we actually don't see is any accountability for police. And I say any as like 99% of the officers who kill people actually are not convicted.
So the Freddie Gray case, which was, I guess, a year after Ferguson,
Yep.
Marilyn Mosby, a city state's attorney, did prosecute 5 police officers without any success. Why was that?
Yeah, so the thing about these cases across the country is that the law is actually not on the side of the prosecutors. So we think about Graham v. Connor, which is a Supreme Court case. We think about qualified immunity that essentially says, and we think about the laws and policies at the local level that almost guarantee that officers won't be held accountable. I think that Mosby could have taken a different strategy. But again, the law is not on her side from the federal level, from the Supreme Court down, to hold officers accountable. We see it in a host of cases. We see it in cases where we have video evidence. We don't see a lot of officers held accountable. You've seen viral videos where it seems pretty cut and dry, and even they aren't held accountable.
You know, the video changes everything, though. I mean,
we wish.
Absent the cell phone video, there'd be nothing. You would never hear about it.
But how wild is it that the only way, we wish that same bar applied to the public, You think about the millions of prosecutions that happen across the country with no video, just based on the testimony of a random officer or a random person. And that's why it's so sort of intense to hear a police officer say that the public's not held accountable. It's like the people in the public get sent away for a long time for very little things. What does it mean to have a 20-year sentence for a pound of marijuana? You think about police officers who literally kill people. We see it on camera, and maybe they have to go work in a different police department. That isn't accountability to me.
Yeah. Well, juries seem to give them the benefit of the doubt.
It's actually not. What's interesting is that it's not really a jury thing. It really is a law thing. So the jury is having to apply a set of laws and policies that really aren't in the favor of the public. So what does it mean that there's a legal precedent that says if the officer was trained a certain way, then if they operate in that way, even if it doesn't really make sense to the public, then it's okay. There are very few professions where that'd be okay. If a doctor just kills you and you're if the doctor's I was just trained to do that bad thing that way, it's you should be a professional and you actually should know a little bit better. Or you should have some training, or you should have some expertise that actually allows you to navigate the situation on a case by case.
Yeah, it's funny. It's one of those things where I would guess everybody is in agreement on where we want to be in 5 or 10 years. You want to have safe streets. You want to have 0 homicides in Baltimore or the state of Maryland. You want to have no police brutality cases. You want to have officers who are well trained, well equipped, well motivated. It's a question of how do you get from here to there?
Yeah, I think that we know, though. It's what does it mean that in Baltimore City, we know that officers were stealing from people's houses. They were selling drugs. They were breaking into pharmacies. And think about all the things we didn't know. The wildest thing about the GTTF trial or case isn't even that it happened. The wildest thing is that nobody in the city of Baltimore actually discovered it. How wild is it that it took the FBI to come in and do the investigation, that there was no apparatus in the city itself that even like realized that this corruption was happening at scale, despite
like fellow officers.
Yeah,
perhaps.
you think about like, somebody to tell somebody, like it wasn't a whole secret. Like people in communities called people, city council, and it led to nothing. Like that's what it means that there's no accountability. So to hear an ex-officer say that like, I'm lopsided, and it's like, we have proof,
One thing you left out of your bio at the beginning of the show, you ran for mayor.
I did run for
mayor
mayor
of Baltimore 3
Yes.
years ago. You going to do it again?
I believe that we have to be as organized on the inside as we are on the outside. I don't know where that'll place me. I enjoy being on the outside right now and get to press and do incredible work around mass incarceration policing, but we'll see.
Lisa in Montgomery County. Lisa, thank you for the call. Go ahead. Oops, lost Lisa. That was my fault. Please call back.
Sorry, Lisa.
You mentioned back to your biography. You mentioned what happened with your mom when you were 3 and she left.
Yep.
The impact of that, obviously it's got to be lifelong.
Yeah, what does she came back when I was 30, so she came back 3 years ago, left when I was 3, and like, what does it mean to, everybody else talks so fondly about their mother, they talk so glowingly about their mother, and I just don't know that feeling. So as an adult, I've really had to piece together what does it mean to remember her and to think about her in my life and not in a sad way. So we're trying to build that relationship. My relationship with her has really made me think differently about addiction and what does it mean that people don't have access to treatment and services in our city, Baltimore, and in places around the country.
And that's what your mom was going through when you were born.
Oh, when I was 3, but yeah.
Yeah. You also talk about being gay and being gay in the Black Lives Matter movement. I think I have not seen the book, but you talk about never having been in the closet. Was that
being in the quiet?
In the quiet.
Yeah, it's like I wasn't hiding, but just because you didn't know doesn't mean it wasn't real, right? So I talk about this notion of like, how do we actually help bring people out of the quiet and make them feel good not being in the quiet? And as a gay Black man in the movement space, how do we know sometimes I'm fighting for people who aren't fighting for me and who might be fighting against me because they're homophobic, but I do want them to be free as well.
Back to the phones, Baltimore County. This is George. George, thank you for the call. Go ahead.
Good evening.
Good
first,
evening.
I want to thank you both for what you're doing. My question deals with, and the subject matter deals with, policing for dummies. In other words, how do we train the great police persons?
That's a great question.
In other words, it seems like the training is geared towards the worst case, which statistically makes no sense. It'd be like all doctors training to be brain surgeons.
Right.
Makes
Yeah.
no sense. And
Sure.
so how do you implement better training for these 18,000 police departments throughout the United States?
George, thank you for the phone call. Appreciate that. What do you
So
think?
what's interesting is that when we look at what training is spent on, is that the majority of training is on firearms, and in the bottom 5, it's like less than 10% of training time is actually on de-escalation, on mental health, and on things that we know can actually like help situations not become deadly. So it really is, it is a great question. Like, how do we train people better? What we would say is train them on de-escalation, train them on mental health issues, that the majority of policing shouldn't be spent on like how to make sure you shoot somebody well, or how to use force in ways, or like legal interpretations about force. They really should be on like, you go into a challenging situation, how do you actually de-escalate? How do you move them out? Other countries have figured out how to do this part of the training better. We also know that some of the training stuff is myth. So if you've ever heard of like the 20-foot rule, so there was like this, there was this crackpot science that has now been debunked, but for a long time, officers got trained that if somebody is within like 20 feet of you, then they could kill you. So you have the right to kill them. And that was like, it was trained in all the major.
So somebody 20 feet away with a knife, say. With a gun, certainly somebody 20 feet away can kill you.
With the stick, with the
Right.
like within 20, it was like this guy came out with this like sphere that was like a 20-foot sphere to view, and 20 feet is like a lot, like you with the stick 20 feet away is sort of, you should be able to de-escalate or de-arm that person even if a stick is being armed without shooting them in the face.
I wonder if there is. I wonder how much the human nature component of it affects these situations where you have a young person, frequently very young, early 20s, with a gun and a badge running towards some situation. and there's adrenaline and the heart rate's going, and it's not a conducive environment for making good choices.
Yeah, then maybe we don't need the institution at all if it's not a conducive environment to
Well,
make
who's going to help?
choices.
Say you have a domestic situation and it's violent, and somebody's got to break it up.
We should think about like what apparatus deals with conflict. But what's interesting, like you said, it's like maybe there is something sort of structurally wrong with the way we've done it today. And you think about, I was a teacher, and some days my students had like hard days. And my response every time a student had a really hard moment was to like hit them and kick them. It would have been just a different place.
Lisa in Montgomery County, thank you for calling back. I won't press the wrong button again. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you, Jeff. Thank you, DeRay, for being there. So my question is regarding what your opinion is on the topic of legalization of marijuana. I have mixed feelings about that. I do believe that in many senses it is a gateway drug. I know I used to live in Baltimore years ago. I know there's a huge problem with addiction there that leads to a lot of people making poor choices.
Lisa, I'm short on time. Let me get you an answer there. Legalization?
Yeah, so we arrest more people for weed than all violent crimes combined. We know that the data actually doesn't suggest that it is truly a gateway drug. Alcohol is far more dangerous to people's livers, their bodies, long-term and short-term. Cigarettes are much more dangerous than weed, and those have been legal.
I haven't done a good job talking about your book. The second part of the title is The Case for Hope. I got 15 seconds. Are you hopeful?
I'm hopeful. When we say the system is broken and people say, it's designed to be that way, our takeaway is that it was designed. And because people made it up, we can make it better.
How old is that vest, by the way?
I've been wearing it since the protest, since 2014, but I've owned it since 2009.
Signature thing. DeRay McKesson, thanks so much for being with us.
Great to be here.
Appreciate it. Thank you for watching Direct Connection. We're back Thursday with Your Money and Business, and Friday with State Circle and the latest on Maryland politics. Have a good night.
This program was made by MPT to serve all of our diverse communities.